So we're always talking about ourselves in terms of, body and soul. But what does that actually mean? Well, today we're going to dive deep into this really cool ancient model that breaks down our whole existence into 5 distinct layers. I mean, it's a huge question, right? Philosophers, mystics, they've been wrestling with this for thousands of years. On one hand, you've got this physical body, here and now. And on the other, there's this idea of a spirit, a soul, something that's supposed to be eternal. So, how in the world do these two totally different things stay stuck together for a whole lifetime? Okay, so before we can even get to the 5 layers, we first have to get our heads around a really core idea from ancient wisdom. And it's this: we're not just one single thing. We're actually two. Two totally fundamental, distinct selves, just sharing one life. So here's how this model breaks it down. First, you've got the mortal self. This is made up of our physical body, what's called the Annamaya kosha, which literally means the sheath of food, and our mental body, the Manomaya kosha, which is all about how we process the world around us. Then, on the other side of the coin, you have the eternal self. This is our awareness and bliss bodies. What we'd probably just call our soul or spirit.
Right, so the really crucial thing to remember about the mortal self is that it's all tied to the material world. I mean, our physical body starts as just one cell, and it's kept going by food. Our mind? It grows and develops as our brain takes in all that sensory info. But here's the key: both are completely dependent on the physical brain. So when the body dies, poof, they're gone.
But wait, that's not the whole story. Not even close. This model says there's a whole other part of us, a kind of awareness, a consciousness, that has nothing to do with the brain. And that is the eternal self, the part of you that existed before you were born. And yeah, the part that keeps on going long after your physical body is gone. And this brings us right to the big problem, doesn't it? The great disconnect. How can these two things, one that's temporary and made of, well, stuff, and another that's timeless and completely non-physical, how can they possibly exist in the same being? It just feels like a total contradiction. So let's just ask the question straight up. If you've got temporary flesh on one side and an eternal spirit on the other, all wrapped up in the same person, what's the interface? I mean, what's the glue holding it all together from the moment we're born to the moment we die? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is something that's as close to us and as constant as our own breathing. The whole solution is hidden in what the ancient sages called the bridge of breath. So where would you even start looking for a connection like that? Well, according to this ancient wisdom, you're not going to find it by cutting open a body. It's not some hidden organ, and it's not a particular chemical reaction. And nope, it's not hiding in the brain either. We've already established that the brain is part of the mortal self, right? So the bridge, it has to be something completely different. The answer is, well, it's so simple, it's beautiful. The connection that ties our mortal self to our eternal self, it gets switched on with our very first breath, and it's released with our very last. It's literally the act of breathing. And this leads us to this amazing concept called prana. You can think of it as a universal life force energy. And believe me, this isn't some isolated idea. You see it pop up in so many cultures. It's called qi in China, nafs in Arabic traditions. You've even got the breath of life in the Bible. It's this beautiful shared piece of ancient wisdom. And that finally reveals the whole 5-layer model. See, we've talked about the physical and mental bodies and the awareness and bliss bodies. But smack dab in the middle, the thing connecting them all is the one crucial layer we haven't talked about yet, the pranamaya kosha, which is the breath body. This is the missing piece of the whole puzzle. Now, what's so unique about the breath body is that, unlike the other layers, it's dynamic. And it's temporary. It literally comes into being the second a baby takes its first breath of air, and it dissolves the moment that last breath is let go. So for our entire life, it's this active, pulsating bridge that's holding the whole show together. Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this all actually play out in real life? Let's follow the journey of a soul from start to finish to see exactly how this model works. It's basically a 3-step process, and it's pretty straightforward. Step 1. In the womb, the physical and mental layers start to form. Now, the eternal self can kind of hover around the fetus, but it isn't actually attached yet. Step 2, the first breath. At that exact moment, the breath body switches on, and bam, it locks the eternal self to the body.
And finally, step 3, the last breath. That connection dissolves, and the spirit is set free.
All right, so we get the bridge now. Let's zoom in a little closer and look at the mind itself. Because it turns out, even our consciousness is split between the mortal side and the eternal side. And this raises a really fascinating question, right? We usually think of our mind as just one thing. But according to this model, it's more like a team of different parts. Some of them are temporary and some are divine. So let's break it down.
So, the mind is said to have 4 main components. Now, 3 of them are purely material. You've got manas, which is our memory, buddhi, our intellect, and ahamkara, which is our ego. All of these come from the brain, and they die with the brain. But that 4th part, chitta, well, that one's different. This is the observer, and its origin, it's divine.
Oh, and I just love this quote from the source material we looked at. It says, "Chitta is the consciousness that comes from beyond the material realm." Think about that. It's the little piece of the eternal self that's living inside our mortal mind, the silent observer just taking notes on our entire life's journey. It is pretty much the divinity within each of us.
And chitta isn't just sitting back and watching the show either. It actually plays a really active role as our inner guide. You know that quiet little voice, that gut feeling that we call our conscience? The one that kind of gently nudges us to do the right thing? Yeah, that's chitta. So let's zoom back out and bring this all together now. We've gone from the individual layers inside of us all the way to the life force that makes us tick. And what this idea of prana suggests is pretty profound. The very same energy that connects our own body and soul is the same energy that connects us to every single other living thing on the planet. And that just leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. Think about it. We take something like 23,000 breaths every single day, and we don't even think about it. But what if? What if each one of those breaths isn't just about keeping us alive? What if it's our little sip from a shared universal energy? What if that simple, automatic act of breathing is what truly connects every single one of us? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.